Hi guys, it's Mr. Young, and as promised, we have a video here to help us kind of get an idea for what exactly this project is going to look like step by step. Now, in class, theoretically, we have already discussed the brainstorming phase of this. So we've read through what the expectations are. We talked about how, okay, we're going to make a game that's going to have a set of rules, some way to win it. We're going to give it a title. We're going to tell about the strategy and math. And we've talked about all the different ways it's going to be graded. We talked through these guidelines about how to make it happen, the step-by-step instructions, which is what we're going to be going through in these videos. We've talked about, use all the paper lesson and the microphone here. We've talked about how we're going to keep this simple, and we're modifying an existing game and trying to add some of these various elements of what make every game a game, and so on. And so today, what I want to look at is the going from this brainstorming phase, which we would have done theoretically, before this video. So, what game basically do I want to modify and make the focus of my new game? And now we're going to talk drafting our game. And you have this worksheet, which you will want to get done hopefully by the end of today, where you're going to just start breaking down what you're doing. Now, as we go through this process, I'm actually going to model this with one of the games that I'm making for our classroom, and for my Algebra 1 students. Okay, so you're going to see me kind of go through this games development process. But with a game that's a little different from what you guys are doing, but it'll still cover everything that you guys need to do in class. So the game I'm modifying is a game called Roll and One, and it's a golf game. And the idea in this game is you roll dice to hit a ball down a golf course. And I'm taking that and kind of some basic chutes and ladders type stuff, and I'm making a new game on that based on that concept that we're going to use in class for review days. The way that I'm modifying it is I'm simplifying the path, so it's going to be closer to chutes and ladders, and I'm adding dice for each club. So the idea is you're golfing, and I'm going to use bigger dice for the longer clubs. So for those of you who golf or know about golf, I'll use a big die for my driver, a small die for my putter, 6-sided dice for the irons in between, and that's kind of how my students will work their way down the course here. So I've taken this game, Roll and One. I'm simplifying the pathing of it so it's easier to get from one hole, from the tee to the hole, and I'm adding dice to make the action selection, we call that, a little more interesting. When I come down here to my rough outline, and by the way, as far as the math of this goes, the adding the dice, right? You've got a better chance of hitting a farther ball if you use a bigger die. That's the idea. So I'm adjusting that probability to account for the fact that drivers hit further and putters hit shorter, and that's how we work on it, or work down the course. My rough outline of the game is it's just going to be squares, and they're going to hit down the course, and there will be a little T or something here for T, and there's going to be an R for rough. I'm writing really tiny here, but I can see it. There's a R for rough, and there's an S for sand, and then eventually they get to the green, and then there's the hole. So I'll have little icons or little letters or something to say, hey, you're at the tee, you're hitting the ball down, and you're counting down the spaces and try and get in that hole in as few shots as possible. Then they'll come back this way, and again, it's a rough sketch, right? So I don't need to necessarily do the full map out, but this might be a par 4. Par 4, and then this might be a par 3. And I might have a par 5 or so mixed in. I might even take a real golf course and kind of model that. But that's kind of the basic idea here. And again, rough outline. So I'm going to have some courses, or a course, some holes with different hazards and stuff. Maybe have a water in there at some point. And then also, and this goes for you guys who are making games more like Yahtzee, maybe that don't need a full move the spaces board, but I will have a scorecard, because golf always has a scorecard. So it'll be like Young acres or whatever is my golf course name, and it'll have like hole number, and I'll have space for that, and then score for each hole, and maybe I'll do a front 9, a back 9 kind of thing, because there's always 18 holes in a golf course. But I don't know if I really want 18 holes in this game, because it's just a classroom game, and 18 problems is kind of a lot to ask a student sometimes. So maybe just, I think maybe just 9 holes would be enough. So maybe this is more like a putt-putt game. But yeah, I'm just kind of got an idea of what my scorecard's going to look like. A lot of golf courses will have like a little mini map of what the course looks like, so they'll have all the different, each hole kind of mapped out. Might not have enough space for that, but I've got kind of an idea of what my board's going to look like. I've got kind of an idea of what my scorecard's going to look like. Now, this next box, materials that I need for this game, pretty simple. Each player would need, a 4-sided die, which we call 1d4, one die with 4 sides. They'd need 1d6 and 1d8. Okay, so one 4-sided die, one die with 6 sides, one die with 8 sides, and then they'll need a course sheet, which would have the 9 holes, and they'll need what else? Oh, they'll need the score sheet so they can keep score, and probably also where I would have them show work. Maybe that's what would go down here in this spot. See, even as I'm doing this design process, this drafting, I'm still coming up with ideas. So, as you're going through this sheet, you might think of something and say, oh yeah, you know what, that'd actually be a good way to make this thing work. Obviously, you guys, when you're making your game, you're not worried about kids showing work because you're not making a review game. You're just making a probability-based roll and write game. But, I want you to see the thought process. Now, what excites me about this, it's a new theme. I have a lot of these games, and for me, the excitement comes from just saying, hey guys, today we're going to play a game about golf, and some kids will groan, but some kids will be excited, and that's okay. That's what makes me excited about it, and it's a new opportunity. You might be thinking, well, I think my game is going to be exciting because now I'm going to take Yahtzee and I'm going to shorten it because I'm going to take one of the dice out, or I'm going to make it longer and more complicated because I'm going to add a die in. What interests you about your project? What made you settle in on making this variation of war where now all of a sudden 2s are the highest, and how does that change things, okay? But what scares you about this project? What scares me is making the board. I've messed around with this kind of stuff, and getting all these little squares can sometimes take a long time, and for me, time is obviously of a premium with 4 children now, so time can be pretty tricky, so I'm worried about how long it's going to actually take to make it, but otherwise I think it's going to be a good time. I'm also maybe a little concerned with the die selection, right? Is 4, 6, and 8 a good spread, or should I do maybe 4, 8, and 12, or 4, 8, and 20? And if I do that, what does that change about the game? So die selection is something else that makes me a little nervous. And that's the kind of thing I'll have to try and experiment once I get to the creation and testing phase, is doing some test holes and just seeing how long this stuff takes. So that's my process for drafting a game. I did my brainstorming. I came up with a game that I liked and that I want to modify. I talked about how I'm going to modify it by simplifying certain parts of it and adding a dice to make it a little more interesting in a different way. I've got my simple pathing kind of structured out where I'll go back and forth, but it still kind of shoots and ladders-y where I start here and get there and just go based on how much I roll. I've also got an idea of what my score sheet looks like. I know what my materials are, and I've got these questions kind of guiding me through the next process. What am I excited about? What do I want to make happen? And what am I scared might happen instead, if you will, or as well as, okay? Follow along with this, hopefully, like I said, follow this model. Hopefully this gives you guys an idea on what this process should look like and how you're going to make this work for your game, okay? Do your best, and thank you guys for your participation. Looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with.